I can't be at reunion with you all, but a big hello to everyone. Next up, my friend Raymond Tsao.
You know, back in 1991, Wharton wasn't even on my radar. I was a sales rep with Merck, my first job out of college. I was thinking about getting an evening MBA because I had heard that Merck might pay for it. I was at company headquarters for a training program, and I ran into Jerry Keller, who was the vice president of sales. I'd met Jerry once or twice before, and so I asked him what he thought about my plans of getting an evening MBA. And what he said was, you can do that, but there are some top programs out there, like Wharton, that don't offer an evening program. You'd have to leave Merck, but if you wanted to apply to those programs, I'd write you a recommendation. I mean, wow. I wasn't aiming that high. My father hadn't even gone to college. He was an immigrant. And I was a B- student at Rutgers. But based on his encouragement, I ended up applying. Jerry wrote me a recommendation, and I was accepted. So that must have been one heck of a recommendation. But that's not the end of the story. One of our classmates, Cheatham Genser, eventually set me up on a blind date with Wendy, who I would marry a couple of years later. And our wedding party was also a Wharton affair. Robin Kim, an Annenberg student who took Wharton classes, was Wendy's maid of honor. Vlad Hogenhaus, cohort D, I think, was my best man. Bob Prokar, I don't know if he's here, cohort K and learning teammate, was in the wedding party as well. So from that chance meeting in the hallway, my whole life was changed. Flash forward to a few years ago. I was having lunch with a business colleague of mine, John Ray. And I was explaining to John that I had just taken up running for the first time to try to combat years of being a road warrior, right? A crappy diet, late nights, little to no exercise. And as we were walking out to the parking lot, John said, you ought to read this book, Younger Next Year. So I bought the book that night, and I didn't put it down until I finished it. And the gist is basically this. At a certain age, our bodies turn against us. And the only thing that we can do to turn the tide is 1, exercise 6 days a week for the rest of our lives. 2, sign up for a 5K or other event to hold ourselves accountable. 3, go out and get new gear, because all the stuff that we have from 20 or 30 years ago is so much better today, right? It's much more enjoyable. And finally, keep up with your friends. So naturally, the first thing I did was I went out and got all new gear. But then I started running and biking almost every single day. The change was so sudden and dramatic that after a while, Wendy said to me one day, "Are you having an affair?" But here's the thing. Since I read that book a few years ago, I've run a couple marathons. A few weeks ago, I biked over 300 miles in a single day. And every Tuesday, I get together with my run club, aka the Fittest Drinking Club. And we run for 4 to 5 miles and then get a bunch of pizza, beer, and laughs. This is important. My blood pressure over the years has gone way down. And I mean, exercise isn't everything. I mean, I could still get hit by a bus tomorrow, but I feel so much better than I had in years. And all of this was from a simple book recommendation in a parking lot. So whether we realize it or not, I suspect that in each of our lives, someone has done something small for us. And these microgenerosities have made our lives a little bit better, or in my case, a whole lot better. But here's the thing. Besides saying thank you, what can we do to repay the person for doing that small thing for us, even though it's done so much good? And I think I've come to the conclusion that we shouldn't. As part of a social contract, we should simply accept those kindnesses and generosities and simply pay it back by paying it forward. So my way of paying it back, or paying it forward, is I've recently launched a public benefit corporation called Pour Your Cup. We're developing an app that is focused on trying to make it easier for people or for members of a community to do small favors for one another. The theory is if it takes you 2 hours to do somebody a 10-minute favor, that favor might not happen. So an example is the alumni of a school can do things like provide job leads for each other, or advice, or internships, etc. And I'm currently piloting this at my high school through a program called Hunter Connect. And we've had some initial success. As an example, Rob Burke was a recent high school graduate, got connected with Dave Kirpin, an alum and an entrepreneur, over an internship. The internship was so successful that when Dave published the 3rd edition of his New York Times bestseller, Rob Burke was one of the co-authors. And he hasn't even graduated college. So I think these connections might not have happened had it not been for something like Pour Your Cup, or if Pour Your Cup didn't exist. But I've got a little bit of a struggle, and this is a good crowd to do it in. You know, how can I scale something like QIC but not have money involved in the transactions? Because money tends to reduce the trust that's required to make these interactions work. So as we leave here today and go out to our lives, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to look for those opportunities to do small favors for others, because I think there's a lot of capacity in this audience to do that. And just to get the ball rolling, if you remember that book that kind of kicked off that fitness craze of mine, I've contacted the author, and I've got a copy for each of you under those sheets.